Hi, I'm Anna Hoyer,
And I'm Zachary Hoyer,
and we are both aerospace engineers. I work at Northrop Grumman.
and I work at Raytheon Technologies Corporation. And if you couldn't tell, we both have the same last name because we're married.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we met at UCLA. So this is our second year coming back to talk to this research program, and we're excited. It's a little bit different this time than it was last time. We're
As-
at home, obviously, and not there in person. I'm wearing a t-shirt and haven't worn real clothes in like 4 months, but
yeah,
yeah,
it's
we're
a
getting through
bit different for everybody right now.
it.
So,
uh, So we'll start. So a little bit about me. I went to UCLA for 4 years. I graduated with an electrical engineering degree in 2011, and I started working at Northrop Grumman a few months after I graduated. And I'm currently a senior principal systems engineer.
and I got my BS from UCLA in 2011. I transferred in from El Camino Community College, so I was only there for 2 years. Everybody let me know that I was not a legit Bruin, but yeah, it was still a great time. And I'm currently in the process of getting a master's right now in system engineering through the Masters of Science online program. Uh, as I said previously, I'm at Raytheon Technologies Corporation, and there I'm actually a manager in software engineering, which, yeah, you look at the bachelor's of science in physics and then see that I'm in software engineering and scratch your head. I do that every day. So it was a surprise to me too. Don't worry.
Honestly, you learn pretty much everything on the job at the companies that we work at. So a lot of the tools that you use are, made in house, and a lot of it just requires a lot of like on-site training. Nothing that you could actually learn in school too a lot of the time. Oh, didn't go. There we go.
So what is aerospace engineering? Well, we actually had an argument about this the other day, which is really funny. But it's the field of engineering that deals with aircraft and spacecraft. That's the aero and the space in aerospace engineering. So from the aeronautical side, everybody knows about planes, everybody knows about fighter jets. Some of the other interesting things that are within the aeronautical is like cruise missiles, missiles in general. Also in the astronautical is rockets, which are sort of a missile, but it goes straight up.
And satellites, which is what I'm working on right now.
Yep. And
So
and everybody knows spaceships too.
obviously.
Yeah, very cool. We can talk about a couple of the pictures here. So up there on that top right side
That's
is,
the James Webb Telescope.
yeah, that's actually being worked on at Northrop right now. And we actually had the opportunity to be able to go to the high bay where they're putting it together on Northrop's campus.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID. Yeah, there's a lot of people jam packed in that room. But it was cool. It was what, the last time that they're going to have everything
Oh
unfolded
yeah,
before they
before
end
they
up
actually set it
actually.
up. If they ever actually set it up, it's been like 8 years delayed. So we'll
Yeah,
see. Knock on wood.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing with all of these huge engineering projects and all of these large systems is that they're so incredibly complex, especially for satellite systems, because once they get up there, there's no getting them
That's
back
it.
down, right? So the verification and validation of all of the stuff that went on there is
Yeah,
very rigorous.
got 100% make sure that everything's a-okay, because I used to work on airplanes and we had a lot of leeway because you go send it up and then it comes back, you do flight testing, etc. You don't really have that opportunity with the satellite, because now I'm working on satellites and we have to 100% make sure that everything's going to work, because once it goes up there's no coming back.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the other things that's on there is something that Anna's actually working on right now down there in the bottom left.
That is the PTS satellite. I can't really say that much more, but you can Google it and figure it out. So it's pretty cool. It's a SATCOM satellite, so satellite communications, and it's completely different from what I was doing before. So I'm definitely learning a lot, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, and a very large portion of Raytheon's business is missiles in general. In fact, we have an entire division that's just dedicated to missiles, and that in the bottom right is one of our cruise missiles. So
I can't get this thing to go to.
technical difficulties.
Oh no, you went too
Click.
far. There you go. Okay, so not an aerospace major. I was not an aerospace major, and neither was Zach. Zach was an engineering major. So obviously, you just need like a basic science background. Like I said before, a lot of the stuff that you do is going to be learned on the job. So as long as you have like the basic principles, it's pretty much, you can learn what you want to do on the job. And You just need the fundamentals, and people need to know that you're a critical thinker, and you'll probably do fine.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has kind of blown my mind is that it seems like for all the people that we have that end up being the best performers or the strongest people, they have a strong theoretical background. Like they understand all the fundamentals of the mathematics and the science, and what we're working on. But they didn't necessarily have a specific degree in, radar design, which is one of the things that I work on, or in, space systems specifically.
Like one of my coworkers, she majored in mechanical engineering, and she ended up being a materials engineer. Mm-hmm. So.
And for me, I mean, I'm a physics major, and I ended up being a software engineer. Yeah. And some of our best and brightest people were, physics or math majors. And, honestly, for a lot of the software engineering work, it's a matter of kind of understanding the concepts and being able to do the underlying design and architecture. But for the actual mathematical and physical principles are what ends up being some of the hardest sticking points for people. So if you understand that, it's really easy to pick up on a lot of the other specifics of some of the jobs that we work on.
Well, especially for a systems engineer, there's no really systems engineering majors. There's master's degrees that you can get into it, but it's more of be able to understand the overall makeup of the system that you're working on and making sure that everything comes together, and just kind of critical thinking. And
again, for these huge systems, the picture shows the B-2 bomber, there's so many disciplines that are employed on one of these large systems. You've got propulsion engineers that are working on the actual jet engines on there. You've got materials engineers that are working on all of the actual materials that the aircraft is made out of.
You have to have computer scientists doing all of the software.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things about the B-2 is that it would have never been able to fly without having some sort of computer control of the actual control surfaces, because it's so aerodynamically unstable that it requires constant adjustment of all of the surfaces, the control surfaces on there, to keep it in the sky, basically. So yeah, a lot of interesting challenges in engineering when you work on these really, really large systems, like a fighter aircraft or a large space system like James Webb Space Telescope.
I can never make this go. You just need to click it from now on.
I think it's a click, but let's see. When I click it, I might do a double click.
Oh my goodness. See? Okay.
Yeah. So just do a click from now on.
Okay.
So, I mean, we already kind of talked about aircraft. Yeah. It's a machine that's able to fly. I think everybody knows about that. Within that, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types. I mean, propeller aircraft, which isn't going to really be in defense. Jet aircraft, definitely in defense. Rotor aircraft. What is rotor aircraft anyway?
It's like a helicopter. Okay. So, I mean, one of the coolest things we're actually UAV sort of helicopters, but I don't know if anybody watched any of the launch of the new Mars rover that went up. But one of the interesting things that they actually have on that new Mars rover that they sent up is a UAV helicopter. It's going to be the first helicopter that's going to fly on another planet.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're going to have a little UAV that's going to go up and fly off of it. And so that's a rotor aircraft that's going to be...
That's pretty cool.
On a whole other planet. So we kind of touched already as well on the uses for aircraft. I mean, down below you can see a Barnstormer, one of the commercial Boeing aircraft there. I think it's a Black Hawk helicopter. It was Black Hawk down. Yeah. So working in defense, obviously we're usually going to be dealing with the military aircraft in most cases, but there are some
cases.
Well, yeah, most cases, because my company, while on the cruise missile that we saw on the previous slide, it was labeled as just Raytheon. We recently merged earlier on this year with United Technologies Corporation to make Raytheon Technologies Corporation, and our company as a whole has basically half civil aerospace, and then the other half is defense aerospace primarily. So we actually work on engines and a lot of other of the internal components for commercial aircraft. And then we also do defense too. So
you guys are more, you're subcontract. I think we get into that later about subcontractors and main contractors. And so you kind of have a little bit more, your foot in.
We have our thumbs in many pies. Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to say anything about this. We already kind of talked about aircraft a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, within the field of defense aircraft, there's a lot of different roles that they can fulfill. So
fighters.
Everybody knows the
bombers,
the B-2 bomber that we looked at, the fighters. There's also prowlers. One of the aircraft that carries a radar that I actually work on at Raytheon is the FA-18 Growler. So it is a electronic attack. No, it's the EA-18 Growler. It's the electronic attack fighter aircraft, basically. So it has some missiles on it. It has a whole bunch of jammer pods and stuff on that. So it's actually a carrier-based electronic warfare fighter. And then also one of the coolest developments now is UAVs, which everybody knows. But that Northrop Grumman X-47B, I have a coworker that worked on it directly, and it was one of the first unmanned aircraft, or it was the first unmanned aircraft to actually be able to land on an aircraft carrier, which is like, it's incredibly difficult for humans to do, let alone a completely autonomous vehicle. So it was very, very.
I can't imagine being able to do something like that.
It was momentous when it happened. It was very cool.
So I used to work on aircraft, but unfortunately it was a bunch of classified stuff, so I can't talk about what I did. Luckily in my new job, I can talk a little bit more about it. Oh, now we have some videos, but we won't probably play these right here. So if you want to check them out, go ahead and Google, F-35 Joint Strike Fighter and then the B-2 Spirit stealth videos. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to work with Will and then be able to provide you guys this slide deck directly.
I'm sure we'll send them both.
Or you can just Google pictures of these videos
of them.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, so some non-combat aircraft.
So not all aircraft in defense are necessarily ones that shoot down other planes or drop bombs. Some of them are also other very important aircraft, like moving supplies to the front line. I mean, everybody thinks of war fighters. They're actively fighting, but where do they get their food? Where do they get their medicine? Where do they get their their ammunition? It's all hauled in on these transport planes that are able to land in far-flung places in the world. There's also the AWACS, the Airborne Early Warning and Control aircraft that you see down there in the bottom left. It's basically a gigantic mobile radar platform that's able to see really, really far out into the distance and determine if bad guys are coming. And then obviously, again, UAVs have become very prevalent in being able to provide reconnaissance and surveillance consistently. They can stay, airborne for, a day at a time practically, fly all the way around the world. And they're all controlled by some guys in a air-conditioned trailer someplace in the middle of Arizona.
Or they're pre-programmed. A lot of them are pre-programmed with their missions.
Yeah.
So
all the advances. It's kind of amazing.
So some more videos. You can go ahead and Google these, or if you get the slide decks, just click the links and watch them. So I guess now we'll get into our experience as aerospace engineers. So I started at Northrop as an intern in 2010, and that's actually where we met, is when we were both interns that year, and we just so happened to go to UCLA.
2010 must feel like ancient history to you guys.
You're probably like 12.
It feels like just yesterday to us, honestly. So.
It does not seem like how long ago that we graduated from UCLA. It's been a while. So I've been at Northrop Grumman for 10 years. I worked in aircraft until about March of this year, and then I moved over to space systems because I wanted to try something completely different. And we have a lot of satellite programs over here in Space Park in Redondo Beach. And I thought it sounded interesting, and I was kind of getting tired of doing the same thing that I was doing. What I was doing before was very niche. And so I was feeling like if I didn't try something new soon, I wouldn't ever leave, and I would get stuck doing that for the rest of my career. So I decided to take a leap of faith and see what happens. And I'm actually very, very happy that I left, because it's something different and it's really interesting. And I'm finding that I like it a lot more than I was doing before. And it's kind of scary at first to kind of leave what you were so comfortable doing and all the people that you used to work with. But I'm really happy I did, because I'm very happy with what I'm doing right now. So right now I'm working, like I said before, on a satellite program, so a satellite communications program. And I am a systems engineer, so I'm basically taking, different parts that have to go into this payload of the satellite and figuring out how they work and writing all the requirements. And then later on, as the program progresses and if we win, then I will be, doing the verification of the requirements, et cetera. So I kind of just like follow what the program is doing. So like I said before, I'm a senior principal systems engineer. Before it was a systems engineer. I did a lot more design analysis. I still had to verify requirements, but kind of in a different way. So I did a lot of range testing. So there's like an indoor range that you can see there. You can see those little blue pieces of foam around. They would shoot radar at that and get the feedback and see what the signature of that airplane was. There's some outdoor range testing you can see there. It's kind of similar. It's also on a pole, and they do that with the same thing. They shoot a radar at it and you try to get the signature back. I did a lot of project management, and I had to travel a lot for work. So that was also the reason I took my new job, because I was kind of tired of being gone literally like every other week or at least once a month for a while. There was one summer where I was literally gone the entire summer. I would go to Florida, I would go to New Mexico, I would go to San Diego. San Diego wasn't so bad. I could just drive there, but it was really fun and it was great.
And you got to stay in a resort.
Yeah, it was really nice. It wasn't that bad.
So the job does have some perks.
It does. No, I had a great time doing all that travel, but it was kind of getting old just because I was like never home, never got to see my pets or my husband. Yeah. So you notice how the pets came first. So now, went from being gone traveling all the time, and I'm literally working at home 24/7, haven't left the house in 4 months. So I guess by taking this new job is right when COVID happened, and now I'm the complete opposite of what I was doing before, but I'm really enjoying it.
Timing worked out though.
Yeah. So a lot of systems engineering is writing, and I'm like technical writing. So you guys might think when you take these technical writing classes in college, like, oh my gosh, why do I have to take this? Like, this is such a waste. It's not. Like, having good writing skills is going to get you super far as being an engineer as well. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that they don't teach you, I think, often enough in school is PowerPoint engineering.
Yeah, that's honestly a big thing you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because, a lot of times as an engineer, you would like to think that your work can stand for itself, but a lot of times you're going to have customers that might just be lay people. I mean, realistically, they're the ones that kind of control the purse strings, and they're the ones that are going to be the ultimate decider on whether what you deliver is up to snuff on what exactly they wanted. Yeah. But there's a lot of times that they're not going to be experts in the field. They might not be able to fully understand everything that you're actually working on. So
you're going to have to kind of like teach them by taking the super complicated thing that you understand and making it very vague and easy to understand. Yeah. Because there's a lot of times that I'll be going through PowerPoints that some people put together. I'm like, this is so high level. Mm-hmm. I can't even handle this. And a lot of the customers will be like, well, I don't understand any of this math. Like, why are you showing this?
That's a great amount of detail. Wow.
Yeah. But can you explain this in 2 sentences? Yeah. So it's really important to be able to take something and summarize it into, easy to understand way, because not everyone's going to understand. I mean, you're not going to understand I don't know what's going on in some other parts of my program because I don't specifically learn and try to write requirements for that. So when someone's trying to explain something to me that maybe they've spent hours and hours and hours studying, I need them to tell me the pretty basic way of how it works.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other things I just wanted to bring up again, since you mentioned it, was that, you were able to pivot completely from doing an aircraft program to a satellite program in the same company. Yeah. And that's the thing that's kind of cool about some of these really big defense contractors.
You can move around a lot. There's a lot of opportunity. Like, we do satellites, we do airplanes. The James Webb Telescope, that's that's a satellite, but that's a little bit different.
You guys are doing the actual rocket systems too, now that you bought Orbital ATK as well.
Yeah, we acquire a lot of other companies. Yeah, exactly. That's very true.
Yeah. So, that's the thing that's really cool. And as I said, for Raytheon Technologies Corporation now, the business includes Pratt & Whitney, that, they work on jet engines. Mm-hmm. It includes Collins Aerospace, that does a lot of the electronics inside of the commercial aircraft. And then I said we have a missile business, we do radar, we do surveillance programs. One of the most random things that I heard about was that we have like antivirus software that we sell to the U.S. government. So it's like we
There's
cover
tons of stuff.
cyber, space,
Yeah.
every
Yeah, we
single
have
thing.
cyber too. We have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So it's like any single field that you could ever be interested in, the company probably has experts in it. And they probably are going to have some openings that you can kind of shift from what you're currently working on into that other
Well, there's
thing.
also, we have this pathways program at Northrup where you can literally move from different program to different program. It's like I think it's like a 3-year program, and every year you change into something different. You can stay in the same thing for 2 years, do something else, you can do whatever you want, but it kind of gives you exposure to like what the company has to offer.
Yeah, we call it the engineering rotation program, where you're actually able to I mean, there's different levels to it. So you could be just within your small business, or you can be within, a larger business, or you can be within a corporation as a whole, moving around from one thing to the next. So
yeah.
did you want to talk at all about?
Oh yeah. So I mean, there's I mentor a lot at UCLA, and I also do it at Northrup. There's this new grad acclimation program, and this is my 3rd summer doing it now, and I'm really enjoying it. I also go back to my high school a lot. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, so we're really trying to get women interested in STEM and engineering degrees, and so I really like go and push that, because my high school math teacher is the one that got me into wanting to be an engineer. So I kind of want to give it back to the girls that are there. And you'll really find that, I mean, I don't know how many women are in this class right now, but you'll find that engineering is really not that male dominated anymore, especially in space. I feel like there's a lot of women. So, I mean, what do you feel like when you're is there a significant amount of women?
There are, but we have a long ways to go. Unfortunately, we've got a long ways to go for making sure that we have good representation of women in the field, and then also people of color too. At my work, I mean, the problem is in defense in general is that
it's old white men.
Well, and the reason why is because if you think about the requirements for what we do, a lot of the times it requires you to have a security clearance. Well, what comes with security clearance? Background checks. You need to have no foreign contacts, and
not
a lot
of foreign contacts,
minimum foreign contacts. I mean, if you have family members that are still living abroad, it starts to get harder and harder for you to be able to get all the clearances required to do your work. So it carries a little bit of baggage with it, and I think we talk about that a little bit later on. But I think because of that, there's sort of been a stigma for people of color to get into the industry, into the defense industry, and then just STEM in general. It's always been hard to try to get,
Well, I feel like it's also hard to get women interested in aerospace too. Yeah. I feel like there's other portions of engineering that women are more interested in than aerospace.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna be real. I wasn't really interested in aerospace when I first started, but I just had an internship, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool, and I stuck with it, and I like it. And I mean, I'm glad now that I'm in satellites. I really like satellites,
but it's changing, and it's also it's an issue that the industry as a whole, and each of our individual companies knows that it's a problem, and we're trying to increase representation. So like on our business goals, or on our goals that every single person has to see every single year, we always include something about increasing representation for females in the workspace, especially females in engineering management positions, as well as people of color. So it's something that we're actively trying to work to improve.
Now you tell me your experience.
Oh no, or lack thereof.
No, that's not true.
So I've been at Raytheon my entire time since graduating. I actually went for my interview during finals week, which was horrifying. Yeah. Recently, within the past year, I became a manager. So up until that point, I was an individual contributor, within the software engineering field. My team is 11 people. It grows during the summertime and then shrinks.
Like 5 of them are interns. Okay, so
yeah, but they're also just as much work as everybody else.
But for a short period of time.
Yeah, it's still a lot of work. So, but yeah, my entire team are all junior engineers. So everybody is within a year of graduating, or they're interns, which is great. It's great being able to be directly involved in the very beginning of people's careers, and really sort of help provide that sort of like spring to bounce off of and start a great career in our company. I'm also a tech lead for a small effort with a couple interns that we have. We're trying to spin up a new tool to do some data analysis. We're doing like a little bit of AI/machine learning stuff, doing a lot of database stuff right now. I am considered a subject matter expert in a very specific component of what we work on. In all of our radar systems, we have built-in tests, which is, I don't know, when you start up your BIOS on your computer and you see, oh, all of these tests ran and everything is okay. Imagine that, but it's a very overly sophisticated suite that takes 3 or 4 minutes to complete, because not only do we have to make sure that 30 different processors are properly working themselves, but we need to make sure that all of the internal communications are working properly between all of the components. We need to make sure that we can talk to the outside world. And then on top of all of that, because the radar is really just a sophisticated measurement device, we have to go through all sorts of calibration and make sure that we can take measurements accurately, consistently, and make sure that there aren't any major errors in the propagation of that information around in the system. A lot of that work is done sort of on a standalone PC. So, I'll do a lot of, actual software development work on a standalone computer in my cubicle or in an office. But because all of our systems are embedded real-time systems, that means that at a certain point, the software that I work on has to get put onto an actual piece of hardware. So we actually have software integration labs. We call them SILs, or RSILs, radar integration labs, where we take our software and then stick it onto the actual hardware and then test it out. So we actually have a little flight test display where we can see what the mission computer or what the fighter pilot would see. We can actually track airplanes where the labs are right over by LAX, so we can actually track aircraft taking off from LAX and then circling around the bottom of Palos Verdes. We can launch fake missiles at them on the display, which is also very silly to do.
I feel like your job's a lot more hands-on than mine is.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of software engineering in general.
You kind of have to test things out a lot. I mean, my old job was pretty hands-on. We had to build parts and go test them in those ranges that I was showing before. But now it's a lot more, like I said, technical writing and just trying to figure out the whole system. And
the thing with space stuff is unless you're a
you can't. I mean, we're not in a build portion of the program yet.
Well,
even then, starting portion.
Even then, if you were, there's no need for you to ever physically interact with any of the hardware that's being put together.
So, no, not being put together. But I mean, I could be doing tests on the actual satellite. But
so I mean, one of the other things that's kind of interesting, you're probably looking at that aircraft in the bottom right and saying, "Oh my God, what is that? It's the ugliest plane I've ever seen." I would agree with you. It is the ugliest plane I've ever seen. It's actually a Raytheon. They call it the Raytheon Mobile Test Bed. So it is basically the laboratory that I was talking about, the radar lab, where we go in and integrate our software on the hardware. That plane is basically a flying version of one of those labs. So we stick our radar up in the front, ugly nose cone up in the front. That's an actual F-15 nose cone that they stuck on the front of a 727, I think that is. The weird pod that's on the side is another pod for a surveillance aircraft radar. And then the additional pods that are on the bottom are for other surveillance radar systems that we build. So the whole thing is kitted out to basically be, a flying lab for us to do testing in. And I actually had the opportunity to fly in it last year.
Once.
Yeah, one time. Once was enough. I got to wear a flight suit.
An actual flight suit.
Yeah, I was singing the Top Gun song the entire time as I was walking around. Thought it was real cool. But it was cool. I mean, we basically got to fly around in the Mojave Desert. We got to see, tanker aircraft out there refueling other aircraft.
cool.
We got to see, we got to fly over parts of the desert that are actually off limits for commercial aircraft. We actually had special clearance to go out there and fly. So it was pretty cool. We actually got to do something that not a lot of people get to do.
What is this other picture?
The picture up at the top is our entire line of radars that we have. So the one that I work on is in the middle. We're working on another one that is based off of the one next to it. They're all, they're all basically based off of the one in the middle. So every single other radar that you see there is a variant of that center one. So
what's the red thing on there?
That is the artist way of not making this picture classified.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. If you actually got to see what was underneath that, then I'd have to kill you.
Oh,
no.
I don't even know what you're looking at. He doesn't even know what he's looking at. Oh yeah. So I guess, is there any more technical stuff you want to, before we move on to this? No. I think we talked a little bit. So some of the positives of working in defense is that you're salaried, but you're also paid for overtime. I was paid for overtime. I'm not getting paid for overtime right now. The program that I'm working on right now is pretty small, and we're just starting up, so there's not a whole lot of budget, but my previous program was pretty large, and for any hour that you worked over, you got paid for it. So, you could make a lot of extra money in during the year, and there was a lot of work to be done. So they're always wanting people to have overtime, etc. They also really push the whole work-life balance. One of my coworkers, she was part-time, so she could take care of her kids, and they were totally fine with her coming in a couple days a week, as well as if you tell them, I've got to go to a doctor's appointment, or my family comes first, we're going on vacation, they're totally fine with that. And Zach and I have taken 2 3-week vacations in the past couple years. It's not happening this year, obviously, but and they were completely fine. There's enough people there that you don't feel like you're going to be the single point of failure. So if you leave for a certain amount of time, there's always someone else who can do your job, or, maybe you don't feel like that all the time. I definitely don't feel like that right now, but
yeah, one of the nice things, depending on what exactly you work on, if you work on a classified program, there's kind of a built-in work-life balance there. They're not going to expect you to always be at work, and that's the only place that you can work on work.
That's true.
So when you get home, you're completely shut off from what you were working on.
See, that was the nice thing, because now that everything I'm doing is classified, I feel like I'm working all the time, because I'll wake up a little bit later, I'll take a couple breaks during the day, I'm at home, so it's a lot easier to get distracted. And so when I leave work, it's getting up from my desk, so I'll just go back to it, and it's kind of it's hard to figure out that difference between work and life when I feel like that's different, though. When we go back to the office, it won't be the same, but
when you live where you work, it's difficult.
It is difficult. So, it's different.
So, some of the other great things is that, obviously we get full medical, we get
dental,
401k with matching contributions. Yeah. That's all great. As I said before, I'm getting a master's right now. That's being paid for by work, so I don't actually have to pay out of pocket for that, which is great. There's a lot of other programs that our different companies have for leadership development, or continuing education, or sort of lifelong learning. I know that we have something that's called ATEP. I can't remember what it's called or what it stands for, but it's basically, a course, a legitimate 10-week course that you can take, where an expert in a specific field teaches you about the thing that they work on, or their field of expertise, which is really cool.
There's always they're always pushing the whole, there's a Caltech series that you can take. I don't know if you guys have that. Carnegie Stevens Institute has a systems engineering that you can take. I went to Georgia Tech and took a week-long class on something that I was working on before. There's a lot of opportunities.
Oh yeah. The reason why you're here probably is because you love learning, and the reason why anybody, continues their education is because they want to learn, and they want to make, learning a priority for themselves. So that's a great thing about a lot of these companies, is they put an emphasis on learning, and they support you in continuing learning. So. And
then, like we said before, there's many different projects and programs, so you can move around really easily. And there's a lot of options. There's something to say about a smaller company. You get a lot more exposure, probably, to higher up management and you get a lot more tasks assigned to you. But at the same time, it's like, how much do you want to do? I don't know how to describe it. Like, how much responsibility do you want for how much you're getting? Like, do you want work to be your life, or do you want life to be your? Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like you said, the single point failure thing really rings true. Like, if you're at a startup and you're like the guy that does their board design,
that's it. You're the person.
If you can't go anywhere. You're not going someplace for an extended vacation, because if something happens, you got to be there. You got to be able to fix it. Whereas, I don't want to say that we're like cogs in a machine, but like a lot of these programs, because of the complexity of them, and because sort of like the runway on them is so long a lot of times, I mean, like many years worth of development. I mean, look at the F-35. That thing's been developed for the past
some people I know
10 or 15 years.
They made a career on the B-2.
Yeah.
They started as a young engineer and they retired.
Yeah. So, I mean, while what you work on might be incredibly important in the lifetime and the lifespan of that system itself, 3 weeks is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
It's not really that noticeable.
Yeah, exactly.
The other great thing is there's a lot of room for advancement. Right now is actually a very interesting time in our industry. There was a huge hiring swing, baby boomer phase. Then the defense industry sort of hit a lull, and there was, they call it the bathtub. So basically there was a big hiring freeze. The industry really contracted. And then we're sort of on another upswing.
Yeah, around when we started working, it was pretty low. And then I want to say in the next couple of years, they significantly started hiring a lot of people. And they still are.
Yeah. So what you have right now is you basically have a lot of people that are technical experts, that are subject matter experts, that are very close to retirement. And you have a lot of junior engineers who have spent enough time learning that they theoretically can fulfill that role of a subject matter expert. But as soon as sort of we hit that wave of all of these people retiring at once, there's going to be a lot of gaps to fill and a lot of positions to basically step into. So that's why, as far as the defense industry is concerned, it's a really good time to get into it right now.
Well, and if you're really interested in like management, but you still want to be a technical person, kind of like your job is, you're managing people, but you still have your technical job 80% of the time. And there's tons of management positions like that because there's just so many people at the company. So
yeah. And then, in general,
people are nice.
Yeah.
People are nice.
I mean, the one thing that's always blown my mind is that nobody's cutthroat. Nobody takes anything personally. The work that we do is, we know that it's important to the country. We know that, theoretically what we're working on could save lives. So there's always this attitude of like, let's put the work first, and let's put, the quality of the product first before we try to bring our egos into it. So, and then in general, everybody that I've ever interfaced with is more than willing to teach you. They always want to help you. If you've got questions, they're willing to sit down with you and go.
And I've really found that true because I literally knew nothing about satellites before I took this new job. So I had a million questions. I mean, I Googled a lot of stuff too because I just didn't want to ask like every 5 seconds people questions about this. But everyone was like really nice, really wanted to help out, and would be like overly informative to the point where I was like, now I'm even more lost because you gave me so much information I don't even know what to do with it. But yeah, everyone, it's a really nice work environment.
Yeah. I mean, I entirely learned software engineering on the job.
I mean, my last job, I learned everything on the job.
Yeah.
So
I had a physics degree. So when I came on, I literally was the guy who
bugged
nothing people about software nonstop.
Exactly. So
some of the negatives.
I don't even know if you guys get this reference because this is a very old movie.
This is for the old
10
oldies.
points if you get what that picture's from.
Yeah, seriously.
I won't tell you, but whoever answers it during the Q&A session.
Oh, you might be able to, if you zoom in on the coffee cup, if you put that in, you'll be able to know.
I mean, no, don't give me clues. So like some of the negatives are also what we were talking about, some of the positives. There's multiple managers. So you have a task manager and a functional manager. Zach's a functional manager. So he does everyone's performance reviews and all of the kind of like, I don't know, like
We do a lot of the overhead budget and
yeah.
stuff.
No, I was just saying the work that you have to do. Like it's more of the emotional side of management.
It's the people management.
Yeah, exactly. Not the project management. Yes. You also have project managers, like I said, so to your task, and task managers are different than even project managers.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit weird. The defense industry in general, they're usually what's called a matrix management organizations, which means that if you imagine a matrix, they've got rows and columns. So your rows might be your functional managers, which are all of the people who deal with all of the people that are in a certain, well, some companies do program, other companies like mine, they do discipline. So like all of the software engineers that support radar systems on fighter aircraft are in
that's
my
how mine
department.
is too now.
Yeah.
Mine's now everyone who's on a satellite communications specific program is on that department.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so all of our people, they're theoretically people that know software that is on those radars that were in that picture that I showed. All of the people in my department know that sort of stuff. What they specifically work on, though, they all work on individual separate programs, and that is the program or the task side of the management. So if you imagine the columns, each one of those are individual programs, each individual like systems or products that are being developed to deliver to the customer. So what that means is that you've got somebody who's responsible for keeping track of the work that you're doing, and then you've got somebody who is responsible for keeping track of the quality of the work that you're doing. Basically, the task manager, they care about making sure that the product is delivered on time and in budget, and your functional manager is the one who is receiving feedback from all of your peers and then dealing with doing your performance review and making sure that you get your raise and answering questions about, you know, if you move your office, where's my phone at and stuff like that. So yeah, it's there's a lot of random things that I have to, a lot of random questions that I have to answer. So
lack of better, it's like a lot of bullshit.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of fluff stuff, like benefit stuff, and I want to take this training, but it costs $500. Will the department pay for it, and you know, stuff like that. So
I used to do a lot of project management. So basically, they gave me a budget, and I had to stay within that budget for the project that I was working on. I had to, had to have techs working on the model that we were building, and then I had engineers design it, and so that's like kind of another side of the management. So
which with all of that, I mean, we got a bullet point just dedicated to bureaucracy.
Yeah, we can just, so there's lots of bureaucracy. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, with any large corporation, you're going to have a bit of bureaucracy. The other, I mean, major issue is that when you're working on classified programs in general, there's so much red tape revolving around what can and cannot go into the classified areas. So
that's one nice thing about my job right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can't have cell phones. You can't have anything Bluetooth related. You can't have anything that can transmit a signal, basically. So we actually use technology from the 90s or 80s.
I used to have a pager.
Yes, I carry a pager around with me every day, which, you know, for those of you that don't know, it receives a
message,
a phone call or a text message that is sent to it, and that's it. And I get a little buzz that I can look at it and say, oh, Anna called me, because she's the only one who calls my pager. Yeah.
Well, no, people from work call your pager sometimes.
Nobody ever calls my pager.
But there's also the other side of things, like there is jobs in defense that don't require being in a closed area all the time, like mine. So you can be at home and working and have your cell phone. I used to not have my cell phone ever for 8 years, so it's kind of difficult going back to using it again because now I'm like constantly on it, which is not good either.
So another one of the major problems, which Anna managed to break out
Oh
of
yeah,
earlier
is
on
being
this year.
pigeonholed. So my
Yeah.
old job is a very niche thing that I did. I can't really talk too much about it, like I said before, but it would kind of force me to be in a specific location. Like there was only certain areas, so certain places in the country that work on that specific thing, and so you can kind of get stuck doing one thing, or even if you just learn one technical background, just aircraft or design and analysis of aircraft, you're kind of just going to get stuck doing that forever because there's other things that you could possibly go do. So I felt like I was getting stuck not only in just doing the same thing, but then if I stay with that thing and it moves somewhere else, I would have to go to where that moved. Whereas if I now satellite communications, I can work in defense, I can work in other satellites. I don't have to work on defense satellites. Like this is just a more broader knowledge that I could use. And so there's ways of getting pigeonholed and not pigeonholed, I guess, at these companies. It just depends on what you make of it, if you move around or not.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing is that if you want to be that person who goes super deep in a very specific subject matter, you can be like the expert on this one very specific
but then
thing.
You're stuck forever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to do that, then you're always going to be that person, which, if you've decided to go that route, good on you.
If you love it, great. But if you're like, I wasn't 100% happy with what I was doing before, I wanted to do something different, then go somewhere else.
Yeah. So, I mean, the problem with that is, a general lack of job security. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to say on a resume, I was the premier person who knew this one subject.
Yeah, but if it's
in
that
and out,
one thing that you can't really bring to
it's only applicable to the one thing that you're working on.
And if it's only applicable to like defense or specifically to your company.
Yeah.
Then because there's a lot of things that you work. I mean, there's a lot of codes and tools that I use in my old job that literally someone wrote it that was in my group. It wasn't like you become an expert on that, but you're not gonna be able to apply that anywhere else.
This can happen to you anywhere.
No,
the main thing is that when you're working on an incredibly big, complex system, you're necessarily going to have to sort of focus on one area. And when you focus on one area, people start to notice that you're the something guy or the something gal. You're the big guy. That's what I hear all the time. If you're fine with that, then that's fine. And if you're not, then you just have to be proactive in making sure that you don't get stuck in that thing. So we kind of already touched on the whole security clearance thing. It comes with a lot of baggage.
Talking about what you want to work on. So you can't talk about what I used to work on.
Yeah. I mean, which is fine. There's a certain amount of I don't want to have to talk about work when I come
You're
home.
at work all day. I don't want to talk about it.
But there's also we like to travel, and you have to get an okay. 30,
every time you want to go somewhere,
30 days ahead of when you're going to go travel, you have to
outside the United States.
Yeah, outside the United States. And there are some places in the world that you just can't go to because you've got a security clearance. So, and yeah, you can't talk about cool stuff.
So then now we're going to get back to kind of the prime versus subcontractor. So Northrop Grumman is a prime contractor on most of their contracts. Like the B-2 bomber, they're the prime contractor. But then Boeing produced the outboard wing, aft center fuselage, landing gear, fuel system, weapons delivery system. And then GE produced the engine. I don't know if you want to talk about the other example.
Yeah, I mean, the aircraft that I work on the radar for, the F/A-18 EF Super Hornet, it's fun to say. There it says we make the radar, but Northrop Grumman makes the aft center fuselage, just down the road in El Segundo. And so then, for all of these things,
my satellite right now, we're making the payload, but someone else is going to make the bus that it goes up in.
Yeah, which for a lot of these systems, again, because they're so large and complex, trying to put all of your eggs in one basket and have one company develop it.
Well, and you just don't. Not everyone has that capability. We don't make engines.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, and there's also a little bit of politics involved in that too. So
everyone's got to be part of it.
Yeah. For these
gotta make it fair.
For these very, very big programs, they give a little piece of the pie to every single defense contractor and make sure that they get covered. So these are just a couple stories about how in certain instances there's a lot of politics involved.
There was one example where didn't someone win and then they protested and
that Boeing that that article about how Boeing won the tanker war, it was all politics, basically, the way that happened.
I mean, you'll notice like one big company will win one big contract, and then the next time there's a big contract, it'll be a different company.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of times that there's sort of teams that develop and they'll sort of end up being like the team that's always going to go
do
for certain things.
Yeah.
But they might always do certain things in a specific field. So like for fighter aircraft or for, other defense aircraft, we team up with Boeing a lot of the time for radars. That's just who we team up with a lot of time for that. But on, let's say, a satellite system, there's nothing that would say that Raytheon wouldn't team up with Northrop. And in fact, we end up doing that for Veers.
There's a few things that you guys are subcontractors on.
And NPOs. There was a polar orbiting weather satellite that Raytheon made some sensors for, and there's like a picture that was somewhat famous. I don't know if it was famous outside of Raytheon, but everybody at Raytheon had it. And it's just this cool picture. It's sort of like the blue marble picture when the astronauts were on the moon and they took a picture of Earth back from.
Maybe you could add it into the presentation.
Oh, I should have done that. Oops. Yeah, but it's a very cool picture. If you look up Raytheon Veers satellite picture or something like that, it'll pop up, and it's this cool picture of the entire Earth shot from space. And it's very high fidelity. Cool. It's very cool.
So some hindsights about our career before we started it. Enjoy your time at school, because I was so stressed out all the time, because I was like, oh my God, if I don't get an A on this, I don't have a good GPA, I'm not gonna get a job, no one's gonna hire me, what am I gonna do? Like, I couldn't handle it. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, man, I really wish I had just like enjoyed learning.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like loving learning again, because now I'm learning this whole new system, whole new way of how things work. I have to, I try to learn the super technical so I can actually understand it rather than, just the broader knowledge. And I wish back that I, enjoyed learning a little bit more. I was always stressed out about tests and grades. And
I mean, you're never going to have another time in your life where it is literally your job to learn. Yeah. Like anytime that you start a new position when you're working, sure, there's going to be a very initial period where people aren't going to expect that much out of you.
But at the same time, then you feel like you really need to learn it really fast, because you're like going to have to catch up with everybody else that's been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years. So
at school, you have to learn fast too. I mean, with UCLA specifically, the classes are so accelerated, but yeah,
it's a different type of learning.
Just enjoy the experience. Honestly, everybody, while you're in
school, not too much fun, but have fun.
While you're in school, you're probably, I mean, for me, I know I was thinking like, God, I just want to get out of here and I just want to start making money. I just want to start making money. And,
maybe this just means we're old.
Huh?
Maybe this just means we're old that we're saying this now.
No, I said it immediately. After I started working. I said, man, I miss college. College was actually a lot of fun.
And it's not just about your grades too. It's about, I think that there was a bullet point that we didn't actually touch on, but team building and team working. It's all, I mean, you have to be able to work with other people too. It's not like you're not going to be doing individual things all the time. I mean, you might be doing a lot of individual work like I am right now, but you're also going to really have to work with a team and ask questions, and you guys have to problem solve together, because some people have knowledge on something that you don't have knowledge on, like we kind of talked about. So having people skills is really important as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the interesting things, so as a manager and also as somebody that specifically like tried to do interviews previously, I have a lot of experience being the interviewer of somebody. And one of the things that is always very telling is when we ask people about questions for when they were on a team and somebody wasn't pulling their weight, or if they were on a team and they took on the leadership role. So any opportunity that you have to sort of be in that team environment and actually come up with good anecdotes, it's actually a really good tip, is to like work on those anecdotes and actually have a good story for when you go into these interviews and people ask you like, what happens? What did you do when somebody didn't pull their weight? How did you deal with, two team members that were, didn't like each other or something like that? that sort of team dynamic question comes up all the time in interviews. So it's really, really great to be able to gain that experience while you're at school. One of the other things, like we talked about, a lot of the times the sort of work that you're going to do is going to be hyper specific, and a lot of the information is just not publicly, it's either publicly not available, or the information that is available is so esoteric or very hard to find that you would never learn it while you're at school. So while you may feel like you want to dive really deep on a very specific topic while you're at school, your breadth of knowledge is actually going to be way more important. It's more important that you sort of are pretty good at a lot of things rather than being excellent in one very specific area, because it kind of gets back to that whole pigeonhole problem. If you come in being the person who knows this one thing and you know it really well, then you're just going to be the person who knows that one thing. And that's what's going to be expected. The other important thing, I mean, this again is just for interviews, making a strong impression. It's really important. I can at least talk to the rest of the people that I know interview for my department. We put a lot of emphasis on people who seem like they're people that we want to work with, honestly.
It's true.
We look at GPAs. I mean, a lot of the times your GPAs or the school that you went to or the major that you're in sometimes are going to get you in the door. They're going to get you past that sort of initial screening that happens from HR, who we don't know how they do what they do.
They have some magic voodoo that they do to figure out who they want to hire, or I don't know.
They do a control F and then look for all the things that they
all
want,
the flags, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, once it gets past that point and it gets to us, what we're more interested in is getting a feel for like your interpersonal skills. We will ask some like pointed technical questions based specifically off of stuff that's in your resume. So if you say, oh, I have 4 or 5 years worth of experience in writing C, and we ask you a question about pointers and you don't know anything about pointers,
you're probably not.
Sorry, you're not going to have a job. But it's also very important that when you go in, you've got confidence. You're able to talk to your resume. You're able to talk to all of the things that you put down on that piece of paper, and also just sell yourself. I mean, you're basically being a car salesman for yourself for this company. Well,
also things I would say, I mean, I feel like internships is a huge thing now, and they weren't that big back when we were in college. But if you really want to get an idea of like different companies and different things that you could do, definitely try to start internships early. I don't know what years you guys all are, but I would say try to maybe even do it, if you get asked back to a different company, but you want to try something different, go try something different. Try as many different companies and different subjects that you can, so you can kind of get exposure to all those things, so that when you do hire full-time, or like we'll talk about in a couple minutes, if you want to keep doing your education in a certain subject, you kind of have a better idea of like what exactly you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things I really look for on resumes is people that show that they're actually interested in the subject matter. So if you've got a computer science major who, we actually have an intern this year who spent his free time coming up with a tool for Discord to be able to basically act like Alexa. So he could say like, hey, Alexa, play this song, and then it would play it on the Discord chat for everybody. When I see people that show an interest in doing sort of software development work or any of this sort of work, I can tell that it's somebody who's going to be passionate about what they do at their job. So yeah, that's something that's really important to show. If you've got any extracurricular or anything that you've worked on outside of school that is pertinent to the subject matter, put that on your resume and make sure you really sell it too.
And then another thing that we were going to discuss is continue your education ASAP. So I did not get a master's, and Zach waited until like 2 years ago to start his master's. And it's really, really hard once you start working to get yourself to go back, because thinking about having to go to work all day and then do school afterward is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, so, I mean, as you gain more and more responsibilities at work, you also gain more and more responsibilities at home too. So
Like when we first graduated, I was literally watching TV like all day, every day after work. And now I can't even find like more than an hour to watch TV if I'm lucky in a day.
Yeah. Which, you know, we don't want to like scare you guys away from going into this field. I mean, it's
a great field. You talking about scaring anybody away? I mean, if you don't want to go back to school, I didn't go back to school.
Oh no. I mean like defense in general, because we're saying that we have literally no time now.
No, that's not because we're in defense.
No. I mean, as you gain more and more responsibilities at work and you become more and more important in what you're working on, you're just going to spend more time there. You're just gonna become more involved in all the things that are going on. That being said, I mean, we still are able to tear ourselves away from work to go on trips and do things, but I've got a lot of responsibilities at work. I mean, and that comes with the manager side
exactly.
too, so.
And my program is like just starting up and it's very small, so there's not that many people working on it yet. So it feels like I just have like 1,500 different tasks to do.
Yeah.
I really don't even know where to start on some of them. Whereas like when you're in a bigger program, I feel like you have like one specific task a little bit easier to like disappear for a little bit.
So trying to manage all of that, plus, you know, taking classes online, it's a lot to deal with. So I'm almost done. Spring next year, spring 2021.
And I mean, it is really nice that you can take like one class a quarter and that you can still work full time. So you're still making money and you're going to school rather than having to quit job or like not have a job for 2 more years and then, you know, start up. Though I will say, like, if you absolutely 100% know what you want to do, I would highly suggest going to grad school right after college, because that's just the best. I mean, you're going to get paid more going into your job, and then you don't have to be, you know, so stressed out that you're having to juggle both things.
Yeah, I mean, another good option too is that if you want to start working someplace and you know that they have the program in place to be able to pay for your education as well. I mean, it's a good way for you to start getting paid and also get your education paid for. And a lot of companies will have programs where you could basically be a part-time worker and like a full-time student essentially. So it kind of flips what I'm doing on its head. And I'm a full-time employee, but a part-time student. You can be, you know, a part-time employee and a full-time student.
It's like an internship.
Basically, yeah.
So I think we've summarized a few of these, but I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so I mean, I think throughout all of this, we've at least hopefully conveyed that some of the stuff that we're working on is kind of cool, and that there's a lot of very big systems with a lot of very interesting challenges involved. I mean, literally all day, every day, you're going to be doing problem solving. If you're somebody that likes to take an incredibly, like what seems like an insurmountable task and be able to like break it down to small pieces and work on all of those, and feel invested in what you're working on, because it's something that's like important to protecting people and keeping America safe. Defense is a great field to go into.
Like, I feel like it's a treasure hunt every day when what I'm doing, trying to find all these different parts, these different systems, and see how they work together, etc. So it's definitely a big problem solving. It's like a big puzzle.
Yeah. And then in general, I mean, we've already also talked about the fact that it's an incredibly collaborative environment. Everybody is focused on sort of learning together and getting at the best solution together. And it's very positive, the work-life balance that they push for a lot of these companies. They want to make sure that you don't get burned out. They only expect you to work 40 hours a week, and you know, they don't push you to work more.
Well, and they also invest so much time in teaching you these skills that they don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be like super pushy about it. Otherwise, you're going to leave if you're not a happy employee.
Yeah. So. And on top of all of that, as we said, you know, right now is a great time to get into the industry. There's a lot of openings that are going to be opening up, which means that there's going to be a lot of spots for people to step into, which means that, you know, people that are behind them are going to have spots to step into. So there's going to be a lot of advancement over the next few years as a large portion of our senior engineering talent retires. So
maybe they won't now.
Yeah,
they can't.
Yeah.
And I think that is it. So we will be in the Q&A on Monday.
I hope you took notes.
Yep. And so come with questions, and don't be afraid to ask anything, honestly. Like, we're pretty chill and we'll answer anything truthfully. So,
I will say the way that I got my job at Raytheon, I still think to this day, is because I provided burger recommendations. So if you're looking for good food recommendations, Anna and I can hook you up. We are huge foodies. So
true story.
Yeah. So all right, we look forward to talking to you guys. All right.
Hopefully we didn't bore you too much.
As you're falling asleep on the keyboard.
Now how do I turn this thing off?
Uh-oh.